living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
Every year, more than 1 in 4 older adults fall and are injured. Some of those who aren't injured still fear falling again. They become less active, and that actually increases their risk of falling. Welcome to Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm your host, Colleen Roylance. Today we'll talk about strength and balance and how important it is as you age, especially to prevent falls. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. Joining us today is Dr. Megan Reed, a physical therapist and clinic manager of Level 11 Physical Therapy. Megan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So 1 in 4 older Americans are falling every year. Is that just a normal aging process? Can we all expect to fall?
Yeah, I think it's an important thing to discuss. Just because falling is common doesn't mean that falling is normal. Falling is still an abnormal finding in the aging population, and people should definitely seek help if they find themselves falling or near falling regularly.
So one thing that I know changes perhaps a little over time is balance. So how does balance affect falls as you age?
Yeah, our balance is actually impacted with age, unfortunately. Good news is there's things you can do, which we will discuss, but research suggests that around the age 50, our balance starts declining. And there's a few components that happen that result in the reduced balance. And one of that is our vestibular system. So our inner ears, that function declines as we age. So our body's normal sense of balance can be off. The other thing that happens is we typically tend to move less as we are older, and that results in, reduction in bone density, a reduction in strength, and a reduction in endurance, and that can negatively impact our balance. Proprioception is another thing that can negatively be impacted by age. Our body's ability to tell where we are in space is something called proprioception, and that decreases with age. So all of those factors play a role in balance becoming more challenging as we age.
Okay, you mentioned over 50. Now I'm over 50. So what signs should I be looking out for to know whether I'm at risk for falling or not?
Sure. Things you can look for in yourself and in your loved ones are first and foremost previous falls. So if someone has fallen before, their risk of a fall is increased. You can watch people walk and pay attention to how you're walking. Are you noticing that you're catching your toes often? Or sometimes we call it scissoring gait in physical therapy, but your foot crosses in front of your other foot. Those are abnormal walking patterns that can increase your risk for falls. If you experience numbness or something called neuropathy or nerve pain in your feet, that can actually increase your risk for falls. Difficulty rising from a chair, difficulty going up and down the stairs, that can put you at risk for falls as well. And requiring things like a cane, or I call it furniture surfing, but having to hold on to a couch when you walk past it or touch a wall or something like that, that can mean you're at increased risk for falls too.
What about the difference between men and women? Are there any signs that vary between those?
There are gender differences, but ultimately I think it's important to keep in mind that both genders are at equal risk really for falls. I see both just as much clinically for falls, but their causes for falls and their risk if they have a fall might be different. Women are at higher risk for fracture if they fall, but men and women are equally at risk for falling.
So today, as we talk about balance, we talk about strength, are there other things besides those two that you can do to help reduce your risks of falling?
there are so many things you can do to help reduce your risk of falling. One thing is stretching and maintaining flexibility, because not only do we have to stay strong as we age, but we have to stay mobile and flexible. And that's very important in our body moving efficiently and reducing our risk for falls. Addressing vision and hearing impairment. So if you're noticing your glasses prescription isn't quite cutting it anymore, or you're having difficulty seeing things, addressing that can actually reduce your risk for falls, as can the hearing impairments, because your vestibular system that I mentioned prior is actually located in your ears. And if you're having difficulty hearing, then you also might be having difficulty with the function of your vestibular system. And then, of course, using things like canes and walkers when appropriate and needed will certainly help reduce your risk for falls.
What about family and loved ones? How can they help prevent falls?
I think, the common things like lending a hand where needed, lend a hand to help someone up the stairs or up a curb, up a ramp. Slowing down. We live in a society where we're so hurried to get from point A to point B, but if we can help remind individuals who are having a harder time with their balance to slow down, their balance actually tends to increase significantly. Removing tripping hazards out of the way. So don't leave clutter around the house. Second guess if that area rug is really a needed, design choice, or if that's increasing your chance for tripping and falling. And then providing assistance for more challenging household chores. So if you have an elderly loved one or neighbor and they need help shoveling or doing yard work or something like that, that can really impact someone's fall risk.
So Megan, we have just under a minute, but I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about those who might have limited range of motion. Perhaps they have arthritis. Mm-hmm. How can they build strength and prevent falls?
Well, you said it partially in the question, the limited range of motion. So one thing that they can do is work on mobility and flexibility. That will help them with their balance, even if they're having some of the arthritic pain. It can also help with their pain too, which is great. The other things that they can do is work on their balance and strength in gravity-assisted environment. And what I mean by that is a pool or some sort of body-weighted support system, which can be provided for individuals in things like physical therapy. And then again, using knee braces if you have really bad knee arthritis, or an ankle brace, or a walker or a cane, if it helps take some of the load off that joint, that can help them reduce their risk for falls.
Thank you, Megan. We're going to take just a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue to talk with Dr. Reed about some of the other ways you can prevent falls. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. Dr. Megan Reed is still with us. She's a physical therapist. Dr. Reed, tell us a little bit about the difference between stretching and building strength.
Yeah, that's a great question. Stretching actually involves lengthening of the muscle and connective tissue with the goal of promoting recovery and improving flexibility. Strengthening is actually intended to increase the force a muscle can produce, and that generally deals with shortening of tissue. Strengthening can also deal with lengthening of tissue, so that's why it's important to designate the difference of it's about building force versus flexibility.
If I wanted to start strengthening my muscles, where do I start?
So I have to say, first and foremost, if someone is considering adopting a new exercise routine or trying something out, they should certainly consult with their physician, because there's a lot of individual factors to consider, but I don't want that to deter people from moving. So something as simple as getting up and walking around the house every commercial break, or walking outside down to the corner for a day, just getting moving is better than no movement at all.
And then let's move over to improving balance. Somebody wants to improve their balance. Again, where do they start?
Yep. So if someone wants to improve their balance, and we're looking at strengthening some muscle groups that play really important roles in that, are your core. So your abdominal core muscles, that's huge in our balance. Leg strength, specifically our glutes, which our rear is super important in keeping us upright and having our body move efficiently. And then working on our posture is another really important way to improve our balance. So making sure that we're standing upright can really impact our fall risk.
So, Dr. Reed, right there you said posture. I immediately sat up straighter.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, what about stretching? How do we start, and what are some of the things to look out for? How do you know you're overstretching, understretching?
Yes. So there is good stretching and bad stretching. Again, don't be afraid. Just listen to what your body is telling you. So what I tell my clients are, there's a continuum of stretching. And one, you want to make sure that you are stretching or feeling the stretch in the part of the body you're intending to stretch. So if I'm trying to stretch out my leg, but I'm feeling it in my back, I should adjust my position or look for a different way to achieve that stretch. We want our stretches to be moderate in intensity. So nothing severe. I shouldn't have to wince in pain when I'm feeling the stretch, but we want it to be intense enough to make a difference. And then lastly, stretching should be held for a minimum of 30 seconds to a minute in order to really get the tissue lengthening that we desire. So I tell patients to hold it for 5 nice deep breaths rather than counting to 30 or something like that.
All right, so we've talked about strength and we've talked about stretching. How do they go hand in hand when you're trying to prevent falls?
They are like the yin and yang of preventing falls. So we can have someone who's really, really strong but inflexible, or really, really mobile but very weak. And each of those individuals are at risk for falls. You want to have the right, we call it in physical therapy, length-tension relationship for our body to move appropriately. So you need to have the right strength and mobility in order to move efficiently and with good balance.
And that might cause problems for people who sit all day. Do you have any recommendations for those of us who sit a lot?
Yes. The thing people like to say nowadays is sitting is the new smoking. Our bodies are not made to be in any one position for long periods of time. So my immediate recommendation is take breaks, get up frequently. And sometimes we have to set reminders for ourselves, either, a little Post-it next to where you sit all day saying get up, so that when you see it, you get up and get around, or set reminders on your phone or something so that you're changing positions frequently. And it doesn't have to be anything dramatic, but just getting up on a regular basis. If people are able to get things like standing desks that can go from a sitting to standing position, that's wonderful. But that's not necessary to get started. Just get up frequently.
And then there are those who have maybe had a hip or a knee replacement. Are there different things they should be doing or looking out for?
Yeah. Sometimes with a joint replacement, surgeons will give us protocols to follow after, or precautions. So if you have a knee replacement, sometimes they don't want you to bend down on that knee that you had replaced. So that's something to keep in mind. Individuals with hip replacements have to be a little bit careful when they're doing things like getting in and out of cars. They don't want to do a certain combination of bending and twisting that might put that joint at higher risk. So it's not that you have to remember those necessarily, but know to reach out to your physician or to a physical therapist for guidance on that.
That's good information. And when we were talking about strength and stretching and how they go hand in hand, how often should someone add stretching to their exercise routine?
Stretching, you can do stretching every single day. Stretching is great for us, and we generally just need more of it. So stretching up to every single day, 5 to 10 minutes a day is great. And that doesn't mean you have to stretch every single day, but you can stretch as much as every day.
Thank you so much. We're going to take another break. And when we come back, we'll have Dr. Reed demonstrate some of the stretches and some of the exercises you can do to prevent falls. Stay with us. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. We're still talking with Dr. Reed, a physical therapist, about how we can prevent falls. Dr. Reed, we're going to get a little active here. Can you demonstrate for us some of the stretches that we can do to prevent those falls?
Absolutely. So I actually prepared a short video that we can take a look at that shows some of my favorite stretches that I give to my patients when we're working on fall prevention and balance. And they can be done in a chair, like a seated hamstring stretch or a figure 4 stretch that you'll see in the video, to really stretch out our hips so that when we're walking, we have appropriate walking mechanics. That plays a big role in reducing our fall risk. And stretches can be done all over the house too, like on our staircase at the bottom step, of course, using that as a tool for stretching. But hamstrings and our hip flexors are really big ones. We want to stretch our full body though. Even neck stretches can be very beneficial in our ability to scan our environment and reduce our fall risk.
Really, then we can stretch throughout the day as we go about our normal routine.
You got it. You can stretch every day and implement. That's the best way to do it, is just throw in a stretch throughout your day, wherever you are, either in your house or out in the community. They're very easily incorporated into your daily life.
Thank you. So what about exercises? Can you show us some of the exercises that you like to share with folks?
Yep. So there are really simple exercises that make a very big impact on your balance and your strength when it comes to reducing your fall risk. Some of my favorite ones start in a chair. Just little ones, lifting your toes up and down can be very beneficial. Again, I've got video footage of that for you guys to take a look at. Things like sit to stand. So we stand up from a chair all day long, multiple times a day. That can actually be an exercise. Repeat it 10 times in a row before you go off to your destination. If that gets too easy, you can change that into mini squats. Stairs are another great place to do things like step ups to strengthen our legs and our core. I also love prescribing exercises at the kitchen sink because it provides a great handle to hold on to. And there we can do things like squats and lunges, but we can also do more balance specific exercises where we put, one foot in front of the other and try to maintain our balance, or keep your feet together while you're turning your head side to side. Things like that can make a really big difference in our balance and our fall risk.
I think it's really helpful, seeing some of these stretching exercises and balance exercises. How about those folks with arthritis, pain, limited mobility? How can they adapt some of these?
Yep. So anytime you're doing exercises and you have pain or limited mobility or arthritis, taking some weight off of those joints can be beneficial. And that can be done, again, in a chair-based program. So starting with some of those exercises that we just saw can be beneficial. Doing things like holding on to a support can take some weight off of your joints. You can also consider strengthening in an environment like a pool that actually really reduces the weight and impact of gravity on our joints. And then lastly, just another plug for the stretching. Mobility is very important in the management of pain for individuals with arthritis who might be at risk for falls.
Exercising in a pool sounds like a really good idea, especially for those who get muscle cramps. If you get muscle cramps when you're stretching or exercising, is that what do you do? Is that bad?
So we don't want you cramping when you are exercising. So, one of the first things to do is look at the exercise. Is it appropriate for you or is it too hard? Try doing something like limit your range or the amount of repetitions that you're doing, decreasing the weight. Then if it's something that's happening more consistently, we want to make sure we're recovering appropriately from our workouts. So doing things like stretching before and after are really important. Other factors people don't often think about are their hydration, right? So how much water are you consuming in a day? And are we getting the appropriate amount of minerals and electrolytes? Sometimes eating something like a banana before a workout can really impact if an individual is dealing with cramping.
Earlier you talked a little bit about some of the tripping hazards and things like that that you might want to look for in your home. But Besides that, what can I look for as far as gait or movement so that I can tell if a loved one might be at risk for falling?
Yeah. So what I mentioned before is just kind of if you notice that their walking is a little off, are they walking a lot slower than you're used to them walking? Are they having to kind of stop before they negotiate things like curbs? That might mean that they're having a harder time getting around. If you notice that they're catching their toes often, that is a huge indicator that they might be at risk for falls. If they require help or multiple attempts getting up out of a seat or off of a toilet or in and out of the shower, those are cases that individuals might be at increased risk for falls.
And if you see some of those, how can you tell if it's time for a cane or a walker? How far do you let it go?
So early intervention is always more effective. So it's better to bring it up sooner than later. You know, the next time you see your doctor, make sure you bring it up. If you have a fall, certainly you should speak to your doctor at a minimum. Don't wait until the next fall because it only takes one fall for, you know, something unfortunate to happen. So we want to make sure that we're being proactive about it. When it comes to the addition of something like a cane or a walker, that's when it's really beneficial to bring a physical therapist on board because there are right ways and wrong ways to use those devices. And it's also not a one size fits all thing. So reaching out for help in those cases is very important.
Dr. Reed, thank you so much. This has been very helpful and I really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for watching and join us next week. Until then, stay fit, stay well, and stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the Healthy Living for Life logo. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.